Okay, I'm going to reverse and do some protocol things. So the Reagan,
Regent.
Dr. Chuku, Anthony, and Quincy. We're welcoming you again. And we have Nze, we are learning Mbama, and Mrs. Mbana with us. And we are delighted that you've come to Montserrat. And this is part of a wider thing, a reconnecting of our people across the Atlantic. You're going to hear more about that later. But this exhibition was also part of that. In 2007, on the 200th anniversary of the abolition of the Slave Trade Act, the Birmingham Museum and the Equiano Society decided to put on a grand exhibition about Eluado Equiano. He bought his freedom here in Montserrat. So whenever we hear his name mentioned, we feel very proud as Montserratian. And I know that the reason why the regent is here is because of Equiano and this exhibition. Because Equiano was an Igbo. And recently we found out that 50% of the Africans who were captured and enslaved on Montserrat were Igbos. I think that Equiano was brought here for a very special reason. These people were here already. And he came and he did marvelous things, which he documented in his book, The Interesting Narratives of Eluado Equiano, the African. Nowadays, we have scholars who are digging into his narrative and coming up with different things. But one of the most interesting that I've come across in recent times was from a professor Lovejoy, from an emeritus professor from the University of York in Canada. And so he's been tracing all the places that Equiano has been to, Virginia, and North Carolina where he was for short periods, England, and he's been to Igboland, and he's been to a place called Equiano in Aba State in Nigeria, in the midst of all the Igbo people. And I think Nze Mbama is from somewhere near there, so he knows what I'm saying. So Professor Lovejoy is saying, when Equiano put Equiano in his book, he was saying, I am Eluado, which is the Igbo name, from Equiano. And, he got converted to his surname. And he argues that Igbo don't name their people in this way. So we are here to find out if that is the case. So he's Eluado, which means loud voice, and he certainly made a loud voice in the abolition movement, and the freedom that we now experience came as a result of his work, as a result of his advocacy, as a result of what he wrote about the horrific conditions of slavery in Montserrat. So, now that I've said all of that, you are free to look at the exhibition, which is the traveling portion of the grand exhibition that was put on by the Birmingham Museum and the Equiano Society. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
exhibition begins here. Yes. And here's your brother. Just tells you the information that I just gave you about the exhibition started. And there are pictures of him, some of the artifacts that are associated. Some children in Birmingham decided that they're going to make him a suit which they thought that he wore when he got freed. So this is their version. So it's the Equiano suit developed by the Hockley Youth Project.
Very nice. Looks very handsome.
That's it, like you. My life and fortune have been extremely checkered, and my adventures various. It's been so many different places. So the first part of the exhibition dealt with Africa, and it tells you where he was born. He said that he was born in the year 1745 in a charming, fruitful vale named Esaka. And now we are realizing it's Eseke. Yes, yes. And he tells you the distance from Benin and the Europeans would have been here until they captured it. So we have some artifacts here, but Benin's bronze and other things that are related to Benin. The middle passage, they captured him, he was 12 years old, him and his sister. And we are wondering what happened to his sister because we hear nothing of the sister. And this is the condition aboard the ship, the horrible, packed, unsanitary conditions under which the captives were kept until they reached here. And they were brought here for no other purpose than to produce sugar, the plantations. So that's a ball of sugar, a sugar cone, and these were the nippers that were used to cut some sugar. And there was tobacco, and then those are the leg irons. The irons, they had those strapped around their legs to keep them together. These, that's there, that is what you're seeing there. And all of this because they wanted sugar in Europe. Yeah. They wanted to sweet their tea.
And you don't have any more sugar?
No, we don't like it. Then they arrived. His first landing in the Caribbean was Barbados. He only stayed for a day there. But he spoke about meeting other people there, and we are assuming that he met his Igbo people because they spoke the same language. And Barbados has set up, established a plaque to his honor, and but the auction block, they were washed, greased, and put out there to be sold like cattle or chair or table. They were not, they were dehumanized. He speaks about coming to Barbados. At last we came in sight of the island of Barbados, at which the whites on board made many signs of joy. They were glad to be there. We did not know what to think. Many merchants now came around, and they put us into separate parcels. I would imagine that he would have been in the children's parcel. But they didn't buy him in Barbados. He was carried up to Virginia.
Interesting.
He was eventually bought by somebody in England, taken to England, and England was engaged in its wars with France, and so they put him to stuff cannonballs into cannons. It meant that it's a wonder that he remained alive, but he did.
War with who?
The war was with France, right? The war was with France for 7 years. And the person who bought him and put him into war said, at the end of this, I'm going to give you your freedom, but he didn't. And whatever he earned, for putting his life at risk at 12, the gentleman took all of it from him, didn't give him any. And instead sold him into slavery in the Caribbean. So here he is. He came to Montserrat. He was sold. This was the man who took his money, Mr. Pascal. And he was sold, brought to Montserrat. He was bought by a man called Robert King, a Quaker merchant who owned ships. And so he was put to work aboard ships. And Robert King promised him, lifted him up as a 12-year-old and said, you weigh about 40 pounds and I paid 40 pounds for you. So if you ever raise the 40 pounds, I will grant you your freedom. So Equiano set out in all of his journeys between Montserrat and St. Eustatius and Pennsylvania, North America. He set out to buy things and sell things that would gain him his freedom. And he saved the 40 pounds, went back to Robert King, who was absolutely shocked. But the ship's captain liked Equiano, they had become friends, and he challenged Robert King that you must grant him his freedom because you promised. And so it is. He became free. He said that when he got his freedom, he was going to buy a Georgia blue suit, like what Nze Mbama is wearing.
Oh,
And here he is dancing as he got his freedom. And if you look around, Mrs. Francis, the Right Honorable, and Sarita Francis is wearing blue. And who else is there?
our deputy premier.
Yeah. So blue, a color of freedom. He explained that his Igbo women, they actually died in indigo, and so he saw that as a very important thing for him to document. That was what was brilliant about him. He documented Igbo culture in so many different ways. He inserted it into so many different things. And indigo happened to have been one of the first crops that was grown in Montserrat when the plantations were established. And then traveling and trading. Igbos are traders. And so he traveled to many places. He traveled to the Arctic. So some part of the exhibition you'll see and polar bear. And he went to the Mediterranean. He went to Central America. And he traveled around the Caribbean. St. Kitts, he was in St. Kitts. He was in St. Croix. And I don't know how he would have done all of that on to Antigua, so I'm going to mention Antigua. And so he traded. And then, when he bought his freedom here in July 1776, he decided to go to England. So he came to England and he became a passionate activist for abolition, using the information that he documented about slavery here in Montserrat. The punishments were horrible. There was a Mr. I'm forgetting his name. What's the name of that place over there beyond the airport? Mr. What's the name of it? No. No. Drummond. There was a Mr. Drummond who would cut off the feet of those who tried to resist and escape. I understand that Mr. Drummond's eventually hung himself. So you put it out there, it comes back to you. And he spoke about people being put into barrels with tars and feathers, and people being boiled in oil. All of those things he documented about life here in Montserrat. It's a wonder that we survived, but look around and we notice that we've survived, and look how beautiful we are. And if we are 50% Igbo, I am certain that the Reagan is very happy that we struggled on.
Yes.
Yes. So when he got to England, this is when, apart from his activism, he started to write. And he was one of the first to document the life enslaved. You know, so he's the first in the slave narratives. And then he's the first person who documented our volcano. He has vivid descriptions of our volcano.
Wow.
And he was a first for so many things that people sometimes believe that he's not real, he's a made-up person. So people like Professor Lovejoy is actually proving that he was real. And he was one of the most brilliant people of his time. The way he spoke about time and mathematical things and so on showed that he came out of a society where this was very important and highly developed. So we know there's an evil calendar and all of these things. And he actually made reference to these things. So what else could I tell you, sir, about this wonderful man?
Powerful.
His suit is over there. See the Georgia blue suit, we recreated it.
Yeah.
And it is good that we have reached this stage. We have come full score. We are looking into the hidden history that is associated with Equiano and the Igbo.
Truly.
What are these?
Huh?
Press is here. These are his books. This is very interesting narrative. It is not paid by me, but I think that it's important for schools to have it, and there are different versions of it. And this one is about him as a child document, so that children could actually read a story. Signed his Manumission papers. He was called Gustavus Vasa when he was christened in England. And people like me don't like that too much. But Professor Lovejoy has convinced me that it is appropriate to call him Gustavus Vasa because of the way Igbo people think. If it was not predestined for him to be called Gustavus Vasa, he wouldn't be called that. And Gustavus Vasa was a king. He was a Danish king. So Equiano saw himself as a king who came to liberate the Igbo people and all African people. Wow. So he's one of the world's first African liberators in the West.
Wow. Liberation movement. Wow.